anti-mindfulness. So this video is about how not to be mindful, about how to destroy mindfulness in a yoga class specifically as quickly as possible. So mindfulness is a big buzzword. Obviously, it's been around a little while now, very popular. Obviously, it's the foundation of yoga that we're aware. It's an awareness discipline. I would argue that if there's no awareness, if there's no mindfulness, non-judgmental, present moment awareness, you're probably not really doing yoga. You're probably doing something like athletics or gymnastics, which is good, but different, yeah. So one way of thinking about this, it's a bit like the video on how not to get yoga off the mat, if you've seen that one, is how would we destroy mindfulness as quickly as possible in a yoga class? How would we do some anti-mindfulness? What would we do to make mindfulness, to do against mindfulness? So there's a reason you start with sort of body and slowness in mindfulness practice. Usually things like being aware of thoughts is a bit harder and doing it at speed is a bit harder. So I'd recommend a slow yoga practice if you really want to practice mindfulness. Fast and mindful is possible, but it's more advanced. For the same reason, you can practice mindfulness of mobile phone, mindfulness of talking and listening, mindfulness of sexuality, of anything, but things that are a little bit more involved socially, particularly, take more energy and are harder. As soon as you come in, if I'm trying to be body aware, as soon as I'm aware that, say, someone gets a camera out, as you'll see a lot in, say, an acro yoga workshop, everyone's got cameras, it's very difficult to be body aware because all of a sudden you're being aware of the social context. It's called the social, I'm being witnessed, I'm being seen socially. My social body comes in as opposed to actually just feeling, yeah? So there's a reason yoga and meditation is often done in a more solitary way on your own or on your mat, taking out other people. There's also a risk in that, as some of my other videos will show. And I think we can need to get to these higher levels of mindfulness where we are mindful in social interaction with language and not just use it as a silent retreat, because life isn't that, yeah? But what if you wanted to, like, too much too soon, making it too quick, adding this social context, the cameras, the social witnessing too early, that would all make it very difficult for people to be mindful of their own bodies and their own emotional responses, certainly two first foundations of mindfulness, before going to that social domain. Another one would be intensity, yeah? So if a practice is too physically intense, you're aware, but it's not really mindful because you're not bringing mindfulness can be translated as remembering. The word from Pali translates more as remembrance, but you're not really bringing awareness back consciously when your hamstrings are screaming. You just can't help it. Yeah. The problem with that is two problems. First of all, you won't transfer it to life. Because in life, there isn't an intense stimulation, right? Some people say, running's my meditation. I say, no. Running may force you to be mindful, or skiing or weightlifting, but if you need weights to be mindful, how do you be mindful like in a business meeting or when you're just walking down the street, right? You become reliant upon that intensity. The other reason it's difficult is that you lose the finer sensations. It's like your emotions are just a little whispering, and the hamstrings burning because you've been in a hardcore forward bend for the last 10 minutes is screaming at you, that you can't hear the whispering. You can't hear the quiet voice of values and emotions and intuition, which for me is part of mindfulness and one of the more important parts. I think this is also why these intense practices can be very addictive to people. If you have a difficult emotional life, some trauma perhaps, something you don't really want to hear, like, I'm in London a lot and I just see like a quiet desperation in people of like, I hate my life, I hate living here, I don't know what I'm doing, it's against my values, but I can go to hot yoga and get a really strong stimulation, then I don't have to feel that, keep doing the exercise, I don't have to feel the little voice inside, yeah? So that's where, a bit dramatic, that's where I would say that too intense a practice, it has other benefits like learning self-regulation, but it can be extremely difficult to actually feel, to develop mindfulness through that. Another one is the sort of guru model, yeah, where someone tells you what to do, tells you how to stand, tells you how to sit. Of course, great for discipline, great for learning things you might not otherwise learn. However, if that's too much, and that often happens in yoga, most Iyengar or Ashtanga classes, for example, you're not learning to tune into yourself. Yeah, and you're reliant upon an authority figure, which again won't be present in life for you. You're not developing the ability to go, oh, actually, I might want to do it a bit differently today because I'm feeling my own body, yeah? I would say not looking at pleasure is another one. So if I wanted like an anti-mindfulness class, I'd be very intense, I'd be a guru about it, and I'd make sure people focused on difficulty. Yeah? I'm actually focusing a little bit on pleasure and allowing calls us to the body. There's a really nice meditation by a guy called Shinzen Young, a meditation teacher I respect a lot, where you meditate purely on the nice feelings in your body because it encourages you to, right? So encouraging people to look at pleasure and emotional domain, but also just what's pleasant in the body rather than just doing difficult things the whole time. There's value in it sometimes, but I think it's very helpful to establishing mindfulness. So what else? Anti-mindfulness. Oh, the whole consumer external focus culture. So the whole culture of I have to be skinny, I was feeling a bit fat today, feeling a bit fat, looking in the mirror. There's lots of mirrors in this studio. Mirrors aren't very good for mindfulness either, actually, because you tend to look externally at the mirrors. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I tend to avoid them if I can. And it's like, now I'm not really paying attention to you, let alone me, because I'm looking at how I am socially. As social animals, we're obsessed with our social image, our social projection, because that's what got us thrown out of the cave or not when we were cave people. So if we start to take photos or start to see mirrors or just a part of this consumer culture of how do I look the whole time, having the yoga clothes and everything perfect, yeah, so people can see me looking beautiful in yoga, yeah, and nice and skinny. Yeah, if we're too obsessed with my muscles, you know, it's male and female versions, it tends to be gendered. If we're too obsessed with that, then I just don't see how we're going to tune into ourselves. Because our frame is on the external. And it's not just on the external, because we can be mindful of other people, that's a great practice, but it's on getting something right, on objectifying ourselves as a thing, which, you know, objectification could be considered the opposite of mindfulness, right? So mindfulness is about subjectification, it's about being aware of myself and you as a subject rather than as an object. So this objectification culture, whether it's around sexual objectification or, you know, objectification in yoga, that we're just bodies that have to be transcended, those whole philosophies and the whole consumer framework that we see a lot around modern yoga is really, to me, a form of anti-mindfulness. So when you go to a yoga class, you can assess it. Is this a mindfulness practice or an anti-mindfulness practice? In my own practice, what do I do which is mindful? What do I do which might discourage mindfulness? You know, am I checking my Facebook in the breaks of the studio, of the workshop, for example? Does that help or not? Yeah, and bringing mindfulness to all these areas. So don't think of mindfulness just as internal body practice. I am aware, I am mindful. No, you're aware of yourself, but you're not aware of the wider context. Yeah, so don't hear this as like you shouldn't be aware of the wider world as well. I think I'm rambling a bit now. So my thoughts there. What are your thoughts on anti-mindfulness? It's a good experiment, because if you can work out how to make your class anti-mindful, you can work out how to make it more mindful. So I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, you can subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. More importantly, however, get the newsletter. So the newsletter you do, is that right? In the box here? Okay. So why you would want the newsletter? So you hear about the best videos, so you actually ask me questions, you can reply to the newsletter, I'll reply. You can hear about events, teacher trainings, other things that are happening, and stay in touch more reliably. So newsletter there.